All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the webinar. I'm Zan from the Israel Trade Office in San Francisco, and this is the premier preparation webinar for navigating JPM, the conference you've all heard about. And so if you're here for that, you're in the right place. The meeting will be recorded, so I need to let you know that, and should be convenient. Should only take about a little bit under an hour, but we'll send out the recording afterwards if you want to review any material. And I'll just get it kicked off right now with an agenda slide to let you know how it's going to go. This agenda is not to scale. The first few parts on introduction, first couple will be quick, and the meat of the call is in the panel discussion, some questions afterwards. But I'll give a quick intro on our org and what we do, and then we'll give it to our partners here on the call for a brief intro. Some great folks, Jim from CSSi, Ben from Innosphere. Talk a little bit about the accelerator program that they actually run for Israeli companies in this area, helping to connect healthcare into the U.S. And that'll be really good. Then we'll get into the panel discussion with Eric and Michael from Excellere Partners. So get some really great tips on JPM and how to best navigate the conference. So here, just a brief on our organization if you haven't worked with us before. So we are the Israel Economic Mission to the West Coast. We have to the East Coast of the US and New York, and a total of 4 in the US and 45 offices worldwide. If you've worked with any of us, it work reasonably similar in terms of connecting Israeli companies to the local market. And so it's for all companies, shapes and sizes. Definitely a big focus on high tech, and then for myself, a focus on healthcare companies. And so, yeah, if we haven't got the chance to work together so far, I hope that we do. We work in a variety of ways, from individual assistance for Israeli companies that are coming in targeting the market, to we work in kind of in reverse. We work with US companies and find out their pain points and needs and try to connect them actively to Israeli companies. And then we do events like this. And I think back in the day, we would do in-person events, if you remember any of those. But this year in the past Jpmorgans, I think even a couple of you have attended with us in the past for in-person Jpmorgan time. You'll hear plenty about the normal contents of Jpmorgan in the panel discussion, but especially for this year, the virtual conference, doing the best that we all can to get together and get some of this networking benefit virtually. We'll go over that. I think quite a few of you on the call are participating with us through to kind of the RESI or the Biotech kind of virtual conferences. And for that, big shout out to the Israel Export Institute that we work with on really any big event of importance here. So I think you heard me say we specialize at the trade offices in connecting to the US side. Really spend my time working with the US contacts, trying to bring them to the table. And big thanks to the Export Institute, which you all have probably all worked with in Israel through that to register and get here. So yeah, if we haven't worked together before, looking forward to it. And I'll pass it now actually to Jim from CSSi to go over a little bit of the partnership and what they've been doing.
Yeah, thank you, Zan, very much. And we're really pleased to be a partner with the Israeli Economic Trade Mission. And we've worked with Zan and his colleagues to provide a program that ensures a seamless and expedited pathway for companies in Israel who want to enter the US market. And we provide various services to companies as illustrated in this slide here, ranging from regulatory consultation to even a place to call home and to help Israeli-based companies connect up to appropriate and some of the leading clinical site networks. Next slide, Zan. Next slide. Just a little bit about CSSi. We are a medical life science CRO. We were established approximately 16 years ago with offices in Baltimore, Maryland, as well as London and Hyderabad, India. As a full service CRO, we offer customized development services to help advance drugs and medical devices from discovery to commercialization. And we have extensive experience on all types of drugs, biologics, including medical devices. And we provide our services on an on-demand basis. In addition, CSSi for the past 7 years has hosted a live partnering forum during the Jpmorgan Healthcare Conference. Our program this year is virtual, as are all of the programs, and we felt that it would be important to share with you today some of the strategies and some of the best practices that we have found for small and emerging companies to be successful during the various conferences at Jpmorgan. And we'll talk further in a moment. It's also my pleasure to introduce Ben Walker, who is the director of the Innosphere and serves as a partner with CSSi and the Israeli Trade Mission. Ben?
Hello, everybody. It's great to be with you. So the Innosphere has been around for actually 22 years now, and we have three pillars to our program. The first is commercialization services, where we focus on customer acquisition, capital, talent, and investor relations. We do have a VC seed fund and work closely with CSSi on that. And we also have specialized facilities. We do offer lab and office space. We have a relationship with UC Health, which is a regional hospital for trials, as well as CSU for animal testing. So we would love to talk to you and work with you. I will pass it on to Zan to introduce Eric and Michael.
Excellent. Thanks, Ben. Sorry, a little trouble getting off mute there. And I'll actually, I'll give one quick piece before I actually let Jim and the panelists take it from here. But feel free to jump into the chat with questions. It's Q&A box. I'll see it. Essentially from here, I'm going to let Jim introduce the folks and actually get into the panel. But feel free to come in with really any questions that haven't been answered yet, even if you think they'll be answered, and I'll jump in and make sure the folks hear it if they haven't already. But yeah, from here, let me actually give it to Jim for a quick intro and bring on the panelists.
Thank you, Zan, so very much. And whether this is your first time attending Jpmorgan or you've been attending for many, many years, Jpmorgan and the conference is undeniably the biggest healthcare event in the world on an annual basis. The conference has been going on for approximately 37 years, and it's really much more than the Jpmorgan conference. It represents over 30 conferences that take place concurrently during this upcoming time period in January. And typically, the conference attracts in excess of 150,000 people to San Francisco. So it's a very busy time of year. And it's often for small companies or companies attending the event for the first time, it can really seem overwhelming. So joining us today are two veterans, Eric Mattson, as well as Mike Geldart, who are going to share with us some of the best practices and some of the strategies that they have found to be successful for helping companies to navigate these conferences. I'd like to first introduce Eric Mattson. Eric?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. One quick fun fact is that the Jpmorgan conference, the literal conference that Jpmorgan runs, has about 5,000 of those 150,000 attendees that come into San Francisco. So really, to Jim's point, it's sort of all of the unofficial activities that happen around the event that create all the deal making, and it's usually surprising. It was to me the first time that I found out that Jpmorgan itself had such a small part in the mass of humanity that invades the city. So just very briefly, because I know we want to get to the panel and the discussion there, let me just introduce our firm, Excellere Partners. We're a healthcare-centric private equity fund with more than $1.3 billion raised and or invested over the last 14 years. During that time, we have invested in or acquired more than 50 healthcare businesses, and that really runs the full spectrum from healthcare service providers to healthcare business services to pharma, life sciences, med device. Quite a holistic interest we have across all of healthcare. Our focus as a firm is primarily on founder-led and entrepreneurial businesses that are looking for a value-added partner to help them drive transformative growth. And Jim and I have known each other for decades now, and so Jim asked Mike and I to speak with you based on our collective many years participating in the Jpmorgan conference. And what should be interesting to you all is that while Mike and I are today investors, during our careers at Jpmorgan, we've been there as investors. We've also been there as sellers, and we've been there in your seat as folks running companies looking for investment capital and or looking for growth partners. So we've kind of seen it from a 360-degree perspective, and hopefully the insights that we can provide today will be helpful to you in driving some of the strategies that Jim mentioned. Just very quickly, by way of personal background, I've spent the better part of the last 25 years primarily in the US pharmaceutical market. Early in my career, I was an advisor to small pharma industry companies looking to either raise capital or pursue some kind of exit or liquidity strategy. I then pivoted into the operating ranks, primarily in corporate development and strategic planning, both with some quite small entrepreneurial businesses, as well as a couple of the largest players in the U.S. pharma market. So again, a broad set of experiences there. Currently, I'm a partner with Excellere, where I'm responsible for identifying new investment opportunities and implementing our growth strategies. In total, throughout my career, I've been a part of just over $5 billion of M&A transactions in healthcare and life sciences. So with that, let me kick it over to Mike to introduce himself, and then we'll get to the panel discussion.
Great, thank you, Eric, and I'm very excited to be here, and welcome to the panel. Like Eric, I've been doing this for a lot of years. I think I counted up a little more than 30 years. I started attending Jpmorgan probably 20 years ago in different roles. My first role was spent about 13 years as an attorney representing healthcare companies, life science companies throughout the U.S., and then spent about another 13 years before I joined Excellere as a partner 5 years ago, running companies, to which were very device intensive. My most recent was I was the chief operating officer and head of development for biotelemetry up until 2015. We were which is now still the largest remote cardiac monitoring company, and from owning the device all the way to service. So I've been to Jpmorgan as representative of that company, as an investor, as an advisor, as looking to help raise capital as we expanded some companies. So it's a neat opportunity, and look forward to sharing with you sort of some of the things, I've learned. Obviously, in today's virtual environment, it's different than walking down the streets and meeting people or catching a coffee with someone. But I think there's some neat opportunities, and look forward to sharing some ideas we have on how to get the most out of it.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Eric, for those introductions. As Ann indicated, the format for today's webinar will consist of a series of questions that I will pose to the panelists, followed by a discussion, and we invite the audience to respond with their questions through the chat box, and Zan will be able to post those to the panelists. So the first question that I have is, since both of you are seasoned veterans, and you've paid $15 for that cup of coffee at Jpmorgan, what advice can you provide to companies that are attending Jpmorgan, whether it's their first time attending or they're attending for their 20th time? And we'll start with Mike.
Thanks, Jim. I thought about this, and I'll share with you what I've learned, and that is I would have the answer to the question, what do you do? What are you about? What do you do? Down. And I would spend time thinking about what is it we do? And you can be very descriptive on describing how you do it and kind of what you do. My advice to you would be think about why you're doing it. And in that context, I would have a very simple, straightforward answer to a basic question of how does your product, how does your service solve a current problem? How does it do it better? How does it do it more effectively? What is your product or your service doing that is going to advance access and or drive value? Thinking about how to answer that in an effective way will engage someone. It'll also help you to understand sort of how does it potentially fit into the process or system. It may be an incredibly innovative product, but unless it currently solves the problem or is about to or advances care or access or value, you may not attract the interest you really want to your product or connect to the right people.
Thank you, Mike. Eric, your perspective?
Yeah, one, just kind of piggybacking on Mike, I think that the another piece to that is that you should assume that that anybody that you talk to, whether it's an investor or an advisor or a consultant, has heard your idea before. And I know I've been in your chair. I've been with a small company, an innovative, business, and we've got novel ideas, and we can get a little myopic and introspective in, sort of what it is that we do and what we propose that we're going to do. And I think that if you add a filter that, the person that I'm sitting across the table has heard my idea before, and I need to make it, kind of particularly poignant and special with regard to Mike's commentary on what's the value that we're bringing to the marketplace. But the other comment that I have is remember that all of the deal making happens after the conference. You meet people at the conference, you establish some new relationships, but anything meaty really happens after the conference. So just make sure that, during these sessions, you're capturing copious notes of who you're talking to, what you're talking about, so that when you follow back up, that follow up is as impactful as it can be.
Thank you, Eric. One of the strategies that I found, just to build off of both Mike and Eric, is everyone passes cards out during the conference. And what I have found to be most successful for myself is to take notes on the back of the card with the next steps and the action items that you promised to that investor. Building off of that, there are over 30 different conferences that comprise the Jpmorgan Collective Healthcare Conference. How can you best prepare for and navigate the various virtual conferences, especially this year, in order to obtain the greatest benefit? Eric, would you like to comment on that or share your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And I don't think that you can be too prepared or too detailed. I know that during the live conference, our firm, we have individual schedules that break down the day into 15-minute increments, literally, as we're moving from meeting to meeting and accounting for travel. Here this year in a virtual world, and listen, we're all doing this for the first time together. So, I wish that I had definitive insights as to how to navigate the virtual conference, but we are managing it the exact same way, where we have teams of people working together to make sure that we're maximizing our coverage, and we have incredibly detailed calendars, and we've got tools associated with that, pen and paper to make sure that during those conferences that we're capturing all the nuanced insights that we can, so that, to my earlier points, when we follow back up with those folks that really caught our attention, that it's not just, hey, I saw you or I heard you at JPM, but we're able to get into some of the details of what made their commentary particularly interesting to us. So I think it's just about organization and detail, and make sure that you've got multiple people covering all the various events that you're signing up for.
Mike, your perspective?
I agree with Eric. I mean, being prepared and understanding who is you want to spend time with. And to Eric's example of 15 minutes, even today in the digital environments, it's probably even shorter. So I would say, being very, very targeted, very precise with your information, your requests, getting to understand what the other person is concerned about, what kind of issues that they have. I would really focus on a very efficient presentation or a very efficient ability to have discussion. And I agree there to the point, most of the things happen afterward. So understanding the contact, how they could fit in, information about them, organizing that in a way that you can come back and follow up is really one of the most important things you can do, is that idea of organization. Who did you meet with? What did they say about this? What are they interested in? How could they potentially be a fit or be an opportunity for you to discuss subsequent to the conference?
Thank you, Mike. It really underscores the importance of that elevator pitch and having that down, as well as your first impression that you make. Given the
I've got a
fact
quick,
that,
if I could
please.
jump in, Jim, actually one question from the folks while we're on the virtual conferences. A couple questions, and one in particular, company with a private company presentation slot at Biotech Showcase coming up. Could you all even just give the basic context around what is JPM versus what is the relationship, let's say, between JPM and all of these other conferences? Why do we call it JPM, and who are these other conferences? You can name some, you can get into it, but I think even just the context helps a little bit.
Yeah, let me just hit that quickly first. So it is generically referred to as the JPM Healthcare Conference, just as we generically refer to as tissue as Kleenex. And there's just really no better answer to that. I mean, Jpmorgan was the innovator of this conference. And then you have had, I'll say, copycat innovators who've just piggybacked on the fact that a number of people were coming to San Francisco to participate in what Jpmorgan initiated, and it has just mushroomed beyond that. So there really is no, for our marketplace, even Excellere's, and we're a little bit upstream from where most of the companies on the call here are at. But the relevance is that all of the major players in healthcare are coming to a single point. Generally, it's a geographic location for the same week in the year. And it really is just a way to kick off the year, and everybody comes with a mindset of getting deals done. So hopefully that answered at least part of that question.
I think super helpful. Yeah, it can, just like I said with the Kleenex and tissue, it's we almost don't remember why we call it one way or another. But and I can say for this conference or for our group of Israeli companies, so I don't think we have, at least companies that are working through our office this year, I don't think we have anyone at the core kind of JPM event. Sometimes for later stage, maybe pre-public companies that they get the invite from the investment bank, Jpmorgan. But I think for our set of companies, right, looking at these virtual conferences, they're not always virtual, but whichever they are, right, Life Science Nation puts on, I think 3 of them this month, one on early stage investments, one on AI companies, one on longevity, the Biotech Showcase. I don't know if you all at any point want to chat about, I think Biotech Showcase is maybe one that gets kind of a synonymous name recognition just because of the huge capacity at the conference. But any thoughts on how folks treat that conference?
Well, I'll start. I can kick off with a comment. Biotech Showcase, as well as some of the other partnering forums, provide a forum for companies to present a summary of their corporate offering. And typically, you would pay a fee, and then you are allocated, you are designated a room to present at, and investors who have an interest in your technology will attend. You are typically allocated at Biotech Showcase 10 total minutes for your presentation. There are no questions during the presentation. Following the presentation, you are allocated a room or a booth to go to or a table to go to. And then companies can come and schedule meetings, with you afterwards. So that has typically been the format of Biotech Showcase and some of the other, some of the other forums that take place during Jpmorgan. The success of these different venues, varies. And as Mike and Eric has said, it's all about the follow-up. Eric and Mike, your comments and experience?
Yeah, and I would just add, any opportunity that you get to tell your story should be, considered a valued opportunity. And that doesn't mean that every time you tell the story that there's going to be people who are interested. So sometimes the most important feedback that you get are the people that will actually tell you why they're not interested, so you can continue to refine the pitch and you can continue to understand who the best target audience is for your particular offering. And I think that's that's probably the biggest thing, just from a just from an expectation standpoint, is that very rarely do we ever have a scenario where, because they're all speed dates, they're all these 10, 15, 20-minute speed dates, and how much depth can you get into in that limited amount of time? I mean, just by saying hello and talking about how crummy the weather is, you've already spent 5 minutes. So it really is just refining that elevator pitch. It's all of the people that you can meet. And I think that the opportunity with Jpmorgan is there are so many consultants there, and there are so many investment bankers there. And your opportunity there, more so than meeting with prospective investors, is that when you meet with an investor, you're one-on-one. And the odds of them being interested or ultimately writing a check at the end of the day are just frankly pretty low, right? I mean, and so it's important to have those meetings because, again, you refine your pitch. But when you're talking to consultants and you're talking to the investment bankers who are there, they have dozens and in some case hundreds of clients behind their curtain, that they will start to hear your message and think about who in their network ought to hear it from you. And that's really how you leverage all of these sessions around Jpmorgan, is getting to the people who can then cascade you out to their broader network.
And I would just, and one additional thing is, I would also think about this as, a two-way opportunity, is understand what's attracting attention to investors or to the consultants. What are they seeing that's interesting? Why is it interesting? Because that's ultimately maybe who your competition is, or at least whether it's competing for investment funds or competing for customers, understanding what is attracting attention. What does groups of people think is interesting, or where, what's getting their interest is going to be important to learn that. And this is a good conference to use that, not just be able to tell your story, but understand kind of what is important to those individuals.
Thank you. And then how do you really, during this conference, since there's so many investors and strategic partners there, how do you suggest finding a strategic corporate or co-development partner to advance your technology versus an investor? Mike, Eric, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, again, we keep hitting a number of the same themes. So, my opinion is that that it's through the advisors, consultants, and investment bankers that is the time best spent, because there could be a co-development partner that on paper should be, the best strategic opportunity for you. But there could be things going on behind the scenes that the only people who are aware are aware of what those activities are that may not make them a very good, potential partner, are the advisors who are having those strategic discussions with them. And so it's time, right? So every hour that you all spend with somebody that isn't, likely to be there at the end of the day, is, it's opportunity cost. And so I think the advisors who are playing in the market every day, who understand, those corporate partners, prospective corporate partners who have to do certain things because of, the market's asking them to do it, or they have something else that's tangential to what you're working on in development. They have that awareness, and that's really how you leverage your time.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
I agree with Eric. I think it's efficiency, and I wouldn't hesitate to you really rely on your advisors. I mean, to understand sort of who is it that's may active in the market, or who would be interested in this, or who would be facing some challenge that you may want to talk to. But I think using the opportunity to kind of network, to not only direct but also say, do you know someone else that might have an interest in this, or this might be interesting to, is an important part of this conference.
Yeah, and just to put a more personal point on this, we receive unsolicited outreach, dozens a day, and the ones that we respond to are the ones that come to us through the known advisors. It's just, it's a reality of the market. So, those of us with capital on our side are more likely to, either answer the phone or respond to an email from somebody that we've got a prior relationship working with, who we know knows our investment criteria.
So building off of that question, Eric and Mike, how do you recommend, or what advice do you give to small or emerging companies in either finding or selecting an advisor to help guide them?
Well, yeah, I think it comes down to understanding where you're at in the development cycle of the company. So if small and emerging is, pre-revenue, seed capital, that's one thing. If it's small and emerging with revenue, looking for growth capital, that's another thing. If it's, everyone's definition of small and emerging is a little bit different. To Zan's earlier point, if it's small and emerging but pre-IPO, then that's another thing. And I mean, we could have a panel just on this topic alone. I mean, I think that is, your question is exactly the point. Getting to the proper advisors, getting to the proper consultants who know the market and who spend all of their time in dealing with the folks that are going to have interest in what what you have to offer, and the stage that you're at is what's most important. And again, I think it's a little bit of a process of just having conversations and continuing to work down that, work down those introductions. And, it's easier to talk about it on a company by company basis than it is here with the broad spectrum of companies that we have represented. So I think it's about, getting to folks that you trust, that know your space, and then having them continue to make introductions until you get to the right folks. I would also just add very quickly, talk to more than one, compare. If you're going to work with an advisor, have conversations with at least a couple of them, so you are making a decision from a point of knowledge.
Thank you, Eric.
Great.
Thank you. We had a question from one of the participants who asked, will the investors and players from the central JPM event, meaning the Jpmorgan live event, will they also look at companies presenting at other events, whether it's be Medtech Showcase, Biotech Showcase, et cetera? Do you have any comments or thoughts on that, Mike and Eric?
Mike, you want to grab that one?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, but I mean, it's still also a matter of time. I mean, you've got to go around. So from the capital side, where we are, our goal is to, look at as many as we can. How do we look for those potential companies that may be the next one we're interested in, or maybe an opportunity for an acquisition for one of our existing companies. So we'll, to Eric's point, we'll spend quite a bit of time coordinating and actually having people at attending different events or different connections. What I encourage you to do is try to cast your net as widely as possible, and then narrow it down afterward for the follow-up.
Yeah. So for example, again, Merck will have, I don't know, 200 people at, again, I don't know how it's going to work here in a virtual world, but typically, Merck will have, teams of people there. Maybe a dozen will actually go to the, or maybe a couple of dozen will go to the actual Jpmorgan part of the conference. But then, there will be teams of folks from their different therapeutic areas. There will be Merck Ventures, so they're fairly well canvassed throughout the other programs as well.
Thank you. Pivoting a little bit, what investment trends are you seeing in life sciences? We'll start with you, Eric.
Yeah. I think the good news for all of us is that we're in healthcare, right? And really, we're just seeing an incredibly, insatiable appetite for opportunities across the healthcare spectrum and across the life sciences in particular spectrum here for this audience, from diagnostics to pharmaceuticals to device to all walks of services in between. And so we're starting, as Mike and I would refer to, with the tailwinds on our side, right? All of us here who are on this call. But if I were to just identify one thing, and it is a result of COVID and everything that it has brought to the world. So it certainly has been a trend that has been in play for a while, but has been accelerated by the pandemic, is just the importance of technology and how that plays into whatever your particular offering is. And I know that probably a number of the offerings represented here on the call are literally technology solutions. So that's great. Others may be products that aren't technology per se, but I think what you need to think about is, is there an Internet of Things play here? Is there tech-enabled production? Is there tech-facilitated delivery? What is the technology angle? Because I think we all, have seen the future, and just this call, in and of itself is an indication of just, how technology is playing into the delivery of all things. And so I think regardless of your product or your service offering here, I think having a technology angle to the discussion is really vital. We are asking those questions with every opportunity.
Thank you, Eric. Mike, given your background and your experience, when you look at a new technology, how do you value and differentiate that technology in the US, where we have a decentralized and non-nationalized reimbursement and healthcare system? And there's often a discrepancy between FDA approval and pricing and reimbursement. And that's a question that we frequently hear from companies wanting to enter the US. Well, I have FDA approval, and does that mean they'll buy it?
Right.
Can you comment on that, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great question to ask, because, You're right. I mean, and you've got to do the FDA approval. You've got to go through the regulatory side. You can ensure that you have that, but that also has to be aligned with ultimately how do you economically transfer your product. And I say economically transfer, not just sell, but whether it's purchase, whether it's integrating something else. And what I would recommend you do is spend some time thinking about who the customer is that will acquire your product and what's the payment model associated with that. So for example, if your product is an implant, that's going to be purchased by hospitals or large systems. Those buyers are going to have a different economic set of considerations and thoughts of how they make those choices versus a product that may be used by physicians to diagnose a patient or by a patient directly to treat an illness or disease. Thinking about how the payment models work, whether it's a direct purchaser, such as a hospital, or is it going to be an indirect, where it's going to be a third party, generally insurance, employer, or government entity purchasing on behalf of a patient, and how will those choose? And then finally, I'd also think about who the gatekeepers are. And what I mean by that is, does your product require a physician to prescribe it? Does your product require it become accepted as a formulary? Does your product require it to be accepted, as a purchasing group to be used in their system? Understanding sort of those channels and how they work is critical. And then finally, thinking about how that aligns to your regulatory side. So when you think about what your indications are, what your approvals are, then those are one of the most important things you can do to align sort of how you're marketing the product with the regulatory approval you've received.
Thank you. And Eric, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, just, like one word that Mike mentioned, formulary, right? I mean, that is an incredibly complicated topic. I would be curious. I wish we were all live. I'd be curious to understand who in the audience knows what formulary is. I can tell you from my experience that there are, I would say, most of the people in clinical pharma development in the US don't understand the term formulary here in the US, which is, what the largest payers do to control what products are available to get out to their lives, to the individual patients that are part of that healthcare plan. And when you think about the fact that there are, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 different payers who all have different formularies, our marketplace gets incredibly complex. So, thinking holistically of not only getting a good product developed and then getting it approved and then getting it manufactured at scale. But here in the US, what's the most important thing is it going to get paid for, and who's going to pay for it? And understanding that dynamic is not for amateurs.
And based on our experience, having worked with many medical device companies that span the spectrum, we often tell them that the costs to develop, to seek FDA approval will be trivial compared to the cost for obtaining reimbursement and pricing support in the US. And it's a process that needs to begin at the time that you start your FDA approval process. One of the other questions that came in is, when you look at, the investments flowing in to the life science space, do you feel, given the fact that we're in a pandemic, that there's still an appetite and still interest in investing in life sciences? And have we reached our apex yet?
I'll kick that one off, Mike, and then you can pick up as well. I don't think we're anywhere close to the apex. Just on a practical level, when you think about the trillions of dollars that are out there chasing investment opportunities, there are huge chunks of our market that now are just completely off the table, right? I mean, just on a just on a very simplistic basis, nobody's looking to make investments in restaurants right now in the US. I would imagine even more globally, right? Those dollars have to go somewhere. And so, we all think about those of us who have been in healthcare for decades, but there are people who have never been in healthcare that now are coming into healthcare because of the tailwinds and the macro dynamics around healthcare. So, I think we have many years to go. Our firm, thesis is that we actually have decades of runway yet in healthcare investing. So I think the appetite across the spectrum is going to remain strong, and we'll see increased levels of investment.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Eric, I agree with that. In fact, I think in many ways, the pandemic, because it has lasted, the time it has actually accelerated and driven increased attention to the use of technology in healthcare in this way, is that we have seen some of the major challenges that we've faced during this pandemic be reduced and solved by technology. We've seen the ability to do virtualization. We've seen acceleration in the vaccine development. If you look at, while this pandemic has, exerted a tremendous toll on lives and impact on people, it has also accelerated our attention to and the acceptance and our willingness to use technology to solve those critical problems of access and increasing speed of development in healthcare. So I think in fact, if anything has moved the apex further away, that says we now are looking and saying, can we use technology to solve more problems we're facing in healthcare?
Yeah, never before has global population health been at the forefront of individuals thinking, of politicians thinking, of corporate thinking, and so I think that we've seen that a health catastrophe can actually lead to economic and political catastrophe, and it'll remain a core core aspect. Again, we say for the long term, and we measure long term in decades.
Thank you. One final question. Last year at Jpmorgan, the media reported the major themes of Jpmorgan as being digital health, the lack of diversity in the executive ranks, drug pricing, and the missing patient voice. What do you feel will be the themes this year coming out of the Jpmorgan conferences?
Mike, you want to take
Sure,
it?
I'll start with a couple. Number one, I think digital health, but I think more specifically is going to be virtual care and remote medicine. I think if anything that came out of the pandemic is what I predict is an explosion in both the acceptance and willingness on the provider side as well as the patients to use technology to close the access gap, virtualized care. The second one is I think you're seeing more and more use of artificial intelligence and understanding how to use data more effectively to more rapidly understand what's happening in large healthcare trends. I mean, that was one of the things with this pandemic is understanding globally what the trend is and getting a handle on that faster than, whether it's tracking, testing, getting a handle faster than that is going to require some significant technology, especially artificial intelligence.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that what again, just the pandemic is so in our face that we can't ignore it. So some of those other topics, while they still exist, and especially the diversity one has become a political hotbed, and we could debate that one all day long. I think that from my perspective, again, primarily being focused in the pharma sector, is that what we have become acutely aware of is how antiquated both the commercial development infrastructure is and the commercialization infrastructure. Both of those are built in the US, and again, I'm a little bit less familiar with it on a global scale, but here in the US, both the drug development infrastructure and the commercialization channel is built for blockbuster drugs. And what we're now finding is that that's not the future. The future are specialty, pharmaceuticals, they're specialty diagnostics, they're companion, it's cell and gene related, right? These things that are, where patients are measured in sometimes hundreds as opposed to hundreds of thousands. And the infrastructure was woefully inadequate to deal with COVID, and will have to change to be efficient with those more nuanced products.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to thank the panelists, and now I'd like to invite Zan to pose any questions that our participants may have.
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, to you all, it's really fantastic info, and we have about 5 minutes to close it up here. So just in real brief, one question came in around the discussion on payer reimbursement, kind of the whole second wave battle, maybe the bottom percentage of the iceberg, let's say, after you get your approval and you got to get it paid for. Where can people find out more resources about how to get, what payers are going to pay for, the thousands of payers, the formulary lists? Where do you go for that?
Yeah, and that's maybe more my world. Yeah, there are literally hundreds of consultants in the US that do nothing but help companies with their market access. And really, we say market access challenges. And these are folks that will have a couple of dozen people on their staff. And across those couple of dozen folks, they may have worked at 30 to 50 of the different payers, and so they know how to go in and talk the talk, if you will, with the folks on that side. And again, it's vital. You only get one chance to make a first impression, and you can't try to navigate it on your own. If there's any area, and I've talked about using advisors and consultants here a number of times, but as you think about commercializing your product, it's virtually impossible to do it without the help of market access consultants.
Nice, definitely super helpful. One other one, a quick 1 minute answer if you got it on question came in, thoughts on brain and neuro technologies, and kind of popularity and positioning of those these days.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, anytime we are able to use technology to improve access, but also to great value. I mean, one of the challenges in neuro and mental health is the ability to better differentiate patients and understand how to intervene so the doctors get better diagnostic information. Technology that advances that side of it continues to be attractive out there when we look at it.
Yeah, we had an investment in a traumatic brain injury business, and the results that we were able to achieve with our patients, really, without terribly sophisticated technology, but it was, I would say, very sophisticated process and discipline around how to take somebody from being in a coma to where they can actually function again, not at 100%, but can function and aren't required to be in a facility for the rest of their lives, was incredible. And it probably is the one area where there is the greatest amount of runway to continue to learn and develop products around. We all hear about oncology being the single largest area of dollar investment, but in terms of runway, how little we know about neuro, I think that there's tons of opportunities there for sure.
Excellent. Wow, and I wish we had more time to keep going. Only a few minutes in maybe, all right, even just a 30-second, let's say, response on how to best message folks and approach folks for these meetings. So it's not to make too many questions out of one, but I think there's one question that's in traditional JPM. What are you pitching with when you reach out for a meeting? Hey, come to the coffee shop and meet. Hey, meet at the suite or whatever. But maybe even just for this time to focus not even on the logistics, but just are you making a request for a 15-minute Zoom, and are you saying let me just show you my pitch deck? What are you pitching for meetings out here?
Yeah, I would, this is maybe a little bit more of a personal response. For me, it's much less about the pitch deck and much more about the people and can I make a connection? I think you have to assume that any investor that you're across the table from has heard your story before. I mentioned that at the very outset. Very little of what we actually hear is truly novel. And so make a connection, take as many meetings as you can, schedule as many calls as you can. To Mike's point, have your value proposition front and center, and take the feedback constructively. We are professional investors and we invest in about 1% of the opportunities that we see. So the other 99%, we try to give constructive feedback, and some folks take that as a personal attack on their credibility and their family, and others take it and weave it into future pitches. So that'd be my 30-second advice. Excellent,
really, really helpful, and thanks to you all. I wish we didn't have to cut it off here in 30 seconds. We keep going, but for the attendees, if you have more questions bubbling up, feel free to shoot me an email. Send any of us an email, and I'll I can put it in touch with the panelists. And just really again, thanks to you all for joining in.
Yeah, good luck to everybody.
Yes, good luck.
Mike, Eric, thank you very much. Zan, thank you for being there.
Thanks,
Zan, Jim, Ben, thanks for having us. We enjoyed it.
Excellent. I'll send out the recording to everybody here, and feel free to respond with any additional questions, and look forward to being in touch.
Great. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Excellent. Take care, y'all.